Hello and welcome to the new Section 3 reporting system. This new site, introduced by HUD's Section 3 department, is meant to be used by the nation's public housing authorities so that you can easily record and submit your annual community efforts via your 60,002A forms electronically. The goal of today's video is to give you a first look at the system and how you'll be using it going forward. A couple of things to note as we're navigating through the site. This is being recorded in a development environment. So while the main functionality that I review with you today will have little to no changes from the final product, there will be some cosmetic differences that I'm sure you'll notice. And as a quick aside, I just want to point out that any references to S3R or the S3R system or site is just an abbreviation for the new system's name. After you've logged into the system, you'll immediately be taken to the home screen you see in front of you. And right underneath the S3 reporting logo, you'll see a navigation bar with a home tab that navigates you back to the screen, an FAQ tab that takes you to the FAQ page regarding the 60,002A form, as well as this website, the instruction tab that'll take you to the comprehensive instructions for the 60,002A form, and a field office directory tab that will open a new tab of your web browser and load HUD's field office directory page. Over to the right, we have a notification bell and profile icon. At this time, HUD will not be sending any notifications directly to the website, and portfolio managers will continue to contact and communicate with you through the methods you're used to. Quick thing to note regarding this profile icon, if you select it, you'll see a drop-down will appear with multiple options. For now, the options from profile to contact support can be ignored. HUD is not using these features at this time, and if you need to make any changes to your PHA or contact information, please do so through the process you're using currently. For now, this menu will only be used to access the logout button when you finish with your session. Now that we have the housekeeping items out of the way, let's get into the 60,002A forms. First question you may have, how do I create a 60,002A form? In this new system, you won't have to. The system will automatically generate a 60,002A form for your PHA on the first day of your reporting period, while also sending you a reminder email to the primary email address on file associated with your PHA. Once the 60,002A form is created, it will live here on the home screen in the draft status, waiting for you to log in and complete it. Moving right along, in order to start working on the draft, select the radio button next to the form you want to select for editing and click Next. Now, step 1 is just general information that you'll need to review, such as the HUD disclosure, the year you're filling out the form for, your form status, and your PHA's reporting period start and end date. Once you've reviewed that everything is correct, you can keep working on the form by selecting Continue, and we'll be on to step 2. All right, step 2 is also very simple. It's just a request to review your PHA's general information and primary contact, and if any discrepancies are found, to reach out to your portfolio manager to make updates. Once that's reviewed, we can select Continue once again. And we're now on to step 3. You'll notice step 3 inquires if your PHA has funding sources that need to be recorded on the form here. It also provides brief instructions on how to add funding sources down here. And it also provides brief instructions on how to identify your grantee's ID number here. Although the instructions to add a funding source are on the page, let's go ahead and walk through making changes to funding sources together. First, you need to select the checkbox next to were funds received from another source. After that, you'll see an Add button appear, which you can select. Once you've selected that Add button, you'll see you can input a grantee's name, ID number, and the amount that was funded. Now let's go ahead and put in some fake data. Here we go. If you need to input more funding sources, you can select the Add button again to create a new set of text fields to add more funding information. If you need to delete any funding information, you can do so by clicking the Remove button over here. And if you've entered multiple funding sources that need to be removed, say 3 or 4 or more than that, you can actually deselect this checkbox next to were funds received from another source. And once deselected, it would get rid of all of your input fields. So just be careful of that. Now, in the case that you have no additional funding sources to record, you would skip all of these steps and you would just select continue to move on to step 4. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and keep the sample data like I inputted, and I'll select continue. Here in step 4, you are again given instructions regarding when it is and when it is not required to complete the Section 3 labor hours entry here. And here we have this helpful hint section to help you determine what qualifies as total Section 3 labor hours, total Section 3 worker labor hours, and targeted Section 3 worker labor hours. Now I'm going to go ahead and enter in some fake labor hours. There we are. From here, we're going to go ahead and select continue. The site will then use my inputs to calculate if I've reached the benchmarks for my PHA. And here we can see that both benchmarks have been met as denoted by these green check marks. And then from here, we can go ahead and select continue again. And we're on to step 5, which is entering in your nature of agency efforts. Here, under the nature of agency efforts header, you can see the instructions directing you to enter in your PHA's nature of agency efforts. And to the right, under the helpful hints header, the site will remind you when reporting agency efforts are required. Now, by default, step 5 is going to assume that you have qualitative efforts to report, and we'll have that option selected already. From there, you can move down to the second half of the page and select any checkboxes next to the qualitative efforts you took part in. So I'll go ahead and just select a few at random. You can select the checkbox next to other, which will create a text box where you can go ahead and describe the qualitative efforts you took if the list does not cover it. I'm going to go ahead and deselect the other box, however, so we don't have to take time entering in that. Now, if for whatever reason you do not have qualitative efforts to report, you can also select that, and then you can select continue to move forward. And now we're on our last step to complete the 60,002A form, the report summary. Now at this stage, you'll be reviewing everything that you've entered into the form so far to just confirm that you've entered in everything correctly without any typos or mistakes. If you're satisfied with your report, you can select the radio button next to continue to report submission and select continue. Or if you have any issues with your report, you can select edit my entries and select continue, and it will take you back to step 3, additional funding sources, to review your form entries all over again and make corrections if need be. Now let's go ahead and just go through these very quickly to get back to the last step. Now, assuming you've completed the form to your satisfaction and there's nothing to correct, go ahead and select Continue to Report Submission and select Continue. And now you'll be asked if you have any success stories that you would like to share with Section 3. And you'll have to select yes or no. That is a required field. And then you'll also be required to review the Section 3 reporting consent and select the checkbox to say that you've acknowledged it. And from there, you can submit the form. After you've submitted the form, you will receive a success message. And then from there, you can either select the home button or the back to form list to go back to the home screen. And now you'll see that the form that we were working on, Montvalo Public Housing Authority 2025, has been updated to the submitted status. And you are now officially done with your 60,002A form at that point. Now, just as an aside, if you would ever like to review any old forms, You can always select the radial button next to the form you would like to review and select Next. We'll load the old form information for you to review. All right, and that wraps up our quick overview of the new S3R site that you'll be using going forward. We thank you very much for your time, and we hope that you're looking forward to using the new system very soon.